being the first means that you are the first, but it means that you can be the first of so many more things. It's just making sure that, we're the first to do something, but we're laying the grounds for more people to do so. And so, from there, from being in there, I was able to advocate and get more STEM clubs in my school and STEM clubs in my community. And so that's really what leadership means to me. It's identifying a need, identifying where, there needs to be a place for you and a place for other people, and filling that need.
Hi, I'm Larry Guthrie, Director of Content Strategy at the Society of Women Engineers. Welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. We're coming to you live from the WE25 Diverse Podcast Studio here at SWE's annual conference in New Orleans. I mean, the energy around us is just incredible. It's the last day of the conference. I mean, there's 13,000 engineers, students, and innovators coming together to celebrate just all things STEM. In fact, today is our signature youth outreach program called Invent It, Build It, and I have two of our participants here to talk a little bit more about that and their STEM journey. It just wrapped up, and I'm joined by two pre-college STEM leaders, Zoe, who is a SWENext influencer and first robotics leader, and Charlee, who's part of the 2025 Flight Crew, a national STEM ambassador program by STEMnext Opportunity Fund. Now we have both our SWENext members. Actually, Charlee just joined today. Welcome to the community. But I'm excited to hear their experiences as student leaders, their favorite moments from Invent It, Build It, and just how they're helping shape the future of engineering through their own STEM outreach. So Charlee and Zoe, welcome to Diverse.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really grateful to be here and have this opportunity today.
Yeah, it's amazing to be here. It's amazing to be surrounded by so many young people who are so passionate and excited about STEM. So I'm super excited for this opportunity.
We are excited to have you, and fresh off of the event too, literally a half hour ago. Let's start with a quick introduction. I mean, we'd love to ask this question on Diverse. If each of you could tell us about yourself and share your, as much of an origin story as you can have in high school. I get it, but let's talk about that origin story about what first sparked your interest in STEM. Charlee, do you want to start?
Oh, yeah. So my interest in STEM did not start in a formal classroom or a formal lab per se. I come from a very rural area in the middle of nowhere, and because of that, accessibility to STEM was not always available to me, and I did not always have access to the clubs or the classes that I needed to really excel. But I think that my interest in STEM and my story into STEM is a testament to the fact that you don't have to have fancy materials to get involved and be passionate. My passion came from the everyday things, tinkering with things, working with things in every day, and just using, a public library card can go really, really far in finding books and things to get you passionate about STEM. And then eventually, using that everyday passion that I found, not in a formal setting, but in a more casual setting, I was able to finally reach out to teachers and start programs that I was able to get more invested into STEM. So, just like I said, it wasn't necessarily something formal, it was more casual, but, it's a testament to the fact that, we all have a place in STEM and we can all find it regardless of where we come from.
Yes, well said, well said. And Zoe?
For me, STEM has always been a part of my life. Ever since I was 3, I remember very clearly that my grandfather would always walk me through different math problems just because he's an engineer and has always been my inspiration for getting into robotics and things like that, because he's instilled those values in me at such a young age, but yet gave me the room to learn what I liked. As I got older, I realized I have such a passion for medicine, and really combining the engineering side and the medical side is a fantastic opportunity. As another clear memory for me was in 2nd grade when my mom brought in this person from JPL for my Girl Scout troop, and she walked us through coding, and that was the aha moment when I realized coding can be done by anyone. And I'm starting to code for my robotics team now because I've realized throughout my life that's such an important part to anything in life, knowing how to break down the steps, which is what makes STEM so fascinating, as you get to learn the hows and the whys of what occurs in life.
Two very different perspectives, but I love that it speaks to pretty much anyone's experience growing up, right? Whether you have the access open to you or you find your own access, it's great. And of course, here at SWE, we do have that Invent It, Build It just wrapped. It's our annual half-day outreach program where pre-college students like yourself, they engage in some really fun hands-on STEM activities. They network with engineering professionals, and there's even an information session for parents and educators. It's just a great example, like if you can see it, you can be it, right? And giving young people the exposure to STEM fields. I could just keep going on and on. It's a fantastic event. I've attended it several times, and it's just so amazing and so cool. But what I really want to know from you all, what was the most exciting or memorable part of today for each of you? Zoe, let's go.
Yes. So during the Invented Build It, the most memorable part for me was the role model mixer, especially as soon as it was 8:30, everyone just walked into the room. The energy was crazy, just seeing all the different people looking at the different demonstrations, seeing the first robotics competition, Robots in Motion, and being able to experience everything while also being able to talk and network with other people. For me, it's incredible seeing the elementary schoolers, as they remind me so much of me at that age, but also meeting others who are in college and have that experience, because I got to ask them the questions I've always been meaning to ask, which was incredible. But overall, the energy was something I've never experienced before. To see so many people passionate about STEM in one place like that is just amazing. And especially that's all women in STEM, which is very encouraging and nice to have that environment.
I think I have a similar experience. The role model mixer was absolutely amazing. I loved that. That's where I met Zoe this morning. So
yes,
that was an
we met
amazing
each other.
experience. And I think that just building off of Zoe's answer, I had a very similar experience getting to meet all of these passionate people from all different walks of life, all of these passionate people from all different ages, engage with them and talk to them and getting them to see, their own passion, and some of the demonstrations there were and some of the stations there were, but also getting to talk to them about those passions. The environment is really like nothing else for kids these age, because oftentimes, when we're putting in environments, we're not putting in environments with people that are passionate about the same things that we are. But putting us in an environment with so many young women who have similar passions and who are always going to be encouraging regardless of the age is really just an incredible opportunity to grow. It's an incredible opportunity to ask questions without necessarily maybe being ashamed of what those questions entail. And, just continuing to do that in the actual session itself and continuing to getting to work with these people one-on-one. These people that we might have just met an hour previously, but getting to build something with them and having to work with them as a team. It's just really an incredible experience to, learn how to work with other people, but learn how to work with other women in STEM. So amazing.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add on too, it's very special meeting Charlee because she's also interested in biomedical engineering. So that was just such an aha moment when we both realized that we have the same passions. And then we started talking about NASA and everything and our loves just for engineering overall. So that was an incredible moment to have this morning.
And just from where I'm from, meeting Zoe was so incredible because I've already mentioned this, but coming from a really small town, it's sometimes hard to find people with similar passion. And then the first person that I meet this morning is Zoe, who has the exact same passion as me, who is willing to talk anything around biomedical engineering with me. I'm pretty sure you mentioned you're getting a patent.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's just the first person that I meet. And that just is a testament to how inspiring this is to just meet other young women who are similarly passionate and who are doing incredible things in this world already.
I mean, there's a couple things. I got to unpack a few things here. You seem really energized by the event. It was just, it just speaks to how important having, this is a bigger scale, but I can only imagine even on a smaller scale, what kind of impact something like this would have in local communities. Two, of course, I'm going to have to ask about the patent.
For sure.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, I've been working on this project where it's developing word problems. So instead, there has been many challenges with math curriculum, which has always been a passion of mine, with connecting it to people's interests. I remember very clearly last year, it was my freshman year, I was sitting at the lunch tables with my friend and she was struggling in Algebra 1 with trying to grasp the concepts, but she's obsessed with Taylor Swift. And I think obsessed is an understatement, but I realized when I added Taylor Swift in and gave her a word problem regarding a concert in Colorado and tax to understand percent, it clicked. And seeing that moment when it clicked for her was so inspiring that I realized that to make a technology that takes a Mad Lib kind of version in the beginning where it asks certain questions and then fills in the blank in the word prompts to personalize it on the spot is something that really could change math education and make it even better for students in that system who are struggling or even just want to further their understanding. So I'm getting a patent on the technology behind that and the code for that specifically.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
fantastic.
you so much. Currently, I am filed for that, but I'm waiting to hear back. So it's all in the process.
You will get it, because that is an incredible piece of
Right?
technology. Also, just making education more accessible and making STEM education more accessible. I mean, that's just a testament to how passionate you are as an individual. And like, you're not even 16 yet. We were talking about LinkedIn today, which was an interesting conversation. Zoe's not old enough to get LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, but she's getting a patent. So that's just a testament to who Zoe is.
Oh, thank you. It's honestly been incredible hearing too, because I remember the first instant I met Charlie this morning, she was just telling me all these research opportunities she had regarding NASA and space. And honestly, all that stuff it sounds amazing. Like, I want to further my research about that, because I was so inspired by what you said. It's incredible that you're accomplishing all of that and how you're beating the odds of where you're coming from in a rural town. It really goes to show you your passion, which is amazing to see.
We got to hear more about this NASA research. Yes, please.
One of the coolest opportunities that I've ever had in my entire life was to conduct research with NASA, UT Center for Space Research, and Space for Teachers, those three organizations. So I've always been interested in medicine, and I've always been interested in space. But you know, where the intersection of these two things come can sometimes be a niche field, but I said it's a field that needs to be explored further. And so I had a research proposal that was selected as one of 4 across the nation, where I got to study the vestibular ocular reflex in a microgravity environment and the effects of a device called GVS on that specifically. And so I got to fly with my research on a microgravity research flight.
Wow.
So I was wearing like a flight suit this morning, and that was one of the craziest experiences of my life, you know, getting to conduct research with such amazing organizations and institutions, but also getting to experience it with myself and being able to take that back to my community. So
That's incredible.
That is amazing. Both incredible stories. We have 2 young ladies here that have accomplished more before getting a driver's license than I probably accomplished before 30. Okay, it's humbling and it's exciting and it's totally inspiring. And you know, you all have a very important role with SWENext Influencer and through your program that you're a part of, inspiring young people to explore STEM, you know, SWENext, STEMnext, the first Robotics, and probably even more organizations that I'm not even familiar with that you all are working with. What has leadership looked like for each of you so far? And how do you motivate others to get involved in STEM?
I think a lot of leadership is not necessarily just jumping in, but seeing where there's an obvious need and then deciding that that's where you need to fill in the gap, right? So for my leadership in STEM, one of the first opportunities that I had to lead was I started a local nonprofit in my area, specifically dedicated to help making STEM more accessible to young women that are living in rural and underserved areas. And through that, I've gotten to lead and I've gotten to connect with so many young women. You know, through those experiences and through leading, you get to see more of those needs and more of those areas where you need to fill in the gap. Additionally, one of the things that I'm really passionate about, which is why I love what Zoe's doing so much, is education, right? So making education as accessible as possible for as many people as possible and making specialized education as accessible as possible across our state. So I was the only girl in my engineering class, but I also became the first girl in my county to be a state officer in the career technical organization that represents engineering in our state. So that's a pretty unique experience to have, to be able to advocate to be the first and then to be able to advocate for something. Being the first means that you are the first, but it means that you can be the first of so many more things. It's just making sure that, you know, we're the first to do something, but we're laying the grounds for more people to do so. And so, you know, from being in there, I was able to advocate and get more STEM clubs in my school and STEM clubs in my community. And so that's really what leadership means to me. It's identifying a need, identifying where, you know, there needs to be a place for you and a place for other people and filling that need.
That's amazing. And meeting some people that could be role models to you, I'm sure they're experiencing the same thing with you, being a role model for them. And Zoe?
For me, leadership looks like in STEM, it really varies in many different ways. Like last year when I joined my school's robotics team, I was the only girl on the team. There were already 2 girls who paved the way on the team previously, but they graduated. So it was very interesting being the only girl at the start of the year on the team, and then slowly more girls were joining as the year went on. But I remember a turning point in the year was when we started a SWENext club. My teacher went to me with this idea that we should become a member of SWE, really make this a part of our community. So we started our school SWENext club, which was a very amazing experience to have as we start hosting events and getting more of the community involved. But also, just like Charlie, education is key for me. With my robotics team, I've helped run initiatives to partner with Girl Scouts. We currently have over 60 people registered for our upcoming workshop in a few weeks to help Girl Scouts earn robotics badges, which is something really special to me as I am a Girl Scout and I have been for 10 years. So this is something that I really wanted to encourage. Well, we also have global initiatives initiatives. Like, we are starting SWENext clubs in Israel in the coming few months,
Wow.
we have an exchange program with one of our students who's starting the first ever club in Israel for SWENext, which is really exciting. And we also have been working on just increasing education opportunities in our area, which has been something that I have learned leadership is not easy to get people involved with, that as it's hard to spark that interest, but once you spark that interest in education, it lasts a lifetime, especially with STEM, which is just a magical experience to see happen, especially when my team brings our robot and we just show off how the robot works with different games that we are given each year to compete with. And just those aha moments are the best part and the most valuable part, as it's really giving back and taking the lead on that, which is so special within my own STEM community through different programs that I am grateful I've had the opportunity and the ability to start and really be given that space to be a leader amongst those programs that we are running.
I just think it's amazing the fact that you were the first of something, and then you joined something completely new, and now you're inspiring other people. Like, that's exactly like what everything is about, you know, like just setting a precedent, and a positive precedent that continues to impact those around you.
Both of you are doing it in your own way.
To really pave the way, you always have to have that first.
It's scary, no?
Yeah. Honestly, I remember very clearly my friends, when I first joined the robotics team, they said, "Oh, you can only join that because you're Zoe. That's just who you are. You just do that." And I'm like, well, anyone could do it technically, but it's just where you have the strength and the values to really stick with something, even if it puts you in an uncomfortable situation in the beginning with new ideas. But I remember that. And then now that friend I've actually convinced to take engineering her senior year. So it's really come full circle with that.
I think so much of it is about the narrative that we set. If we take the narratives that we're given, you know, the narrative that, you know, women, maybe like you said, you're just doing that because you're Zoe, or you're just doing that because you're you. Well, I'm not doing that just because I'm me. I'm doing that because I'm passionate about it. And I think that once we expose people to those opportunities, when we reshape the narrative, and when we say that you're not defined by, you know, what people expect of you, you're defined by what you're inspired by. You're defined by your own intrinsic motivations. I think that's when we set a positive precedent for society, and we can positively impact girls everywhere and just people everywhere, you know? Just creating opportunities for people.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's even tougher, you know, to change the narrative around yourself without a role model, right? I mean, it's very important, but it sounds like it can be done. It's the scary piece. How do you deal with that being the first? Do you feel like there's a responsibility, or how do you overcome that kind of scariness or anxiety? Did you feel that could possibly keep you back, and how did you overcome it?
Definitely for me, being the first of anything is always scary, but I'm grateful to have such a support network to help me through it. But even sometimes the strength comes from within, and I still struggle daily sometimes with that. And I remember, even though I try to hide it as best as I can, my first robotics competition, I was quite anxious just for what I was walking into and knowing what could happen or was going to happen, just because it was the first time for me going to a robotics competition. Because the first of anything is scary, but especially the first of doing something within something you're passionate about is easier for sure, but it still has its own roadblocks and anxiety, which is of course normal. But just knowing, am I gonna let myself succumb to the anxiety and never pursue the opportunity that I could, or actually rise above it and really work through it, because it gives you a brighter future than what you know you already have in some ways, and knowing that it will help you and all have to overcome that barrier, that roadblock, to get to the point that you want to be at and reach your full potential.
Charlie, how do you deal with that?
I think for me it's more about, not necessarily, and I do agree that it's very scary to be the first sometimes, but I think it's more about the responsibility that it carries for a lot of women and a lot of people who are put in situations where they have to be first. This is not necessarily a super fair responsibility, but sometimes, you know, when you are the first to do something, you feel like it is on you to do it well. Because if you don't do it well, and if you don't set a standard that sometimes feels like you have to make it so much above the average that you're letting people down, because then anybody else who's like you, who steps in that space, will be seen as, well, the last person who did it didn't do it well, and then it affects them. And so I think that there is that responsibility to perform, like I mentioned, not always a fair responsibility, but because of that, I think that motivates me to do well. You know, I think that's a motivating factor, you know, being the first in these spaces, to not only reach the bar, but to surpass it, and I think that that's a big testament to a lot of the things that I've been able to do. Like, I was the first person to start a STEM club within my actual school, and being the first person to set these opportunities up. Now we have like 4, or we're getting like 3. Being the first person to do that, there is a expectation that, oh, if you're starting that, then that should be done well. But now that it is done well, we have more, right? So as long as you can set the expectation, like, obviously, like, being the first is scary, but being the first, the control is in your hands.
Yes.
And the control to set a positive precedent and a positive standard for people to look up to, you're the person that controls that. And I think that there's power in that.
Absolutely. And especially, a good handful of grace would probably be good with yourself,
Yeah.
right? To where when it doesn't quite go, because nothing
Yeah.
ever goes perfectly, right?
Yeah.
No.
To say like, okay, it's okay. We're
Yeah.
gonna move
Yeah.
past this and still
Yeah.
keep moving. You were talking about narratives, and that I can't help but think of also like roadblocks, biases, all those other things. Have you faced any challenges so far as a young woman in STEM to this point? I'm curious to hear about those roadblocks, or if you've experienced those types of things, and what have you learned from it? Charlie, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So a big thing is that bias is not always overt, right? So sometimes bias isn't like shutting you out of a room saying, oh, you're a woman in STEM, or you're from here, you can't be in the space. Sometimes bias is about who is encouraged to do things, right? So when you're in a classroom, who is encouraged to take on that harder math problem, or who is encouraged to take on these harder projects. And I think that that's really important, that when we're addressing this issue, to kind of understand. So, being a young woman, and this is not true for all places in the South, for my own community, sometimes I do find it true that in my small town, young men, for the little bit of opportunity that is available for young people, it's typically prioritized to be given to young men. And that's not fair to all the young girls who live there. Your outcome should not be defined by, first of all, your sex or gender, but it also should not be defined by your zip code, by any other external factors. It should be defined by those internal factors that make you so incredible. And so, facing a little bit of that sexism in the South, and then also facing the fact that, like, in places outside the South, sometimes when I would go in them and I would pursue research, this is not always a thing, but I found that sometimes, because I'm from a small area in the South, people will assume that, especially if I have like a more Southern accent, that my intelligence is not up to par to other places where it comes from. And that's another thing. So it's really kind of this unique combination of, facing this own bias within my own internal community, but facing it also from an outward standpoint. So it's really about, like I said, like, just realizing that you are not defined by what other people think of you, and you are defined by what you do. There will always be people who set those things, but I guarantee in all those places with those negative people who have those biases and who are doing those things, you'll find somebody positive. You'll find an encourager, and find those people and stick to those people, because those people will give you the energy and give you the fuel you need to reach the places that you want to be at.
That's fantastic.
Regarding gender biases, it's pretty interesting. I live in Los Angeles, so it's definitely a bubble where there's a lot of acceptance, but the thing is, I noticed a lot the females in engineering, especially in that area, understand that there's biases, but it's interesting that especially the males don't understand that even there's that bias that occurs. Like, the most interesting thing was last year when we were hosting our Girl Scout badge workshop, one of the members on the team went up to my mom, another mentor, and myself and said, is there really that gender bias that these girls feel? And our immediate response was yes. It's just not really noticeable in the Los Angeles area as much, because we're so lucky to live in that bubble that I wish the whole world was like, where it really was inclusive to everyone. But it's not really understood as well by some males that there's still that gender bias, and sometimes it even is microaggressions too, like small jokes that they don't even realize that are offensive that they make because they don't think it's actually excluding, when it is far worse than that, which has definitely been a problem that I have faced. And my big thing is just educating that there is that gender bias, because even if you may not see it, you may have to look a bit more for it in certain areas, but it will always be there. And that's the gap I want to bridge, that we need to rid this bias, because it's still seen in the workforce and everything. And that's one of my passionate points. As I remember, for our robotics team, we have to give an impact presentation every year about our outreach and what we do. And one of the lines I put in was regarding the statistics of male versus female engineers. And at our banquet, we jokingly all switched our roles of what we said in the presentation. And to have a male saying that line was just fascinating because it didn't really hit home to him until he actually read it himself, because he heard me read it all season, but for him to read it himself actually made him understand really the bias that women face no matter what.
That's powerful, making changes, and that's kind of what SWE's all about, right? That's our mission, is how do we make an impact, make inroads to remove bias and kind of make access broader for everyone so they can kind of see themselves in STEM. I got to wrap up. Of course, it sounds like there's a promising future for both of you, to say the least. So what's next for each of you? How do you see STEM, like organizations like SWE and SWENext? How do you see them shaping that future? Zoe?
I definitely see SWE shaping the future. Like, the more people they reach, I know I've been in communication about wanting to bring even more events to many different areas, which is something that SWE has helped. Like, just from Invented Build It alone, I left feeling so inspired for the future, and really it uplifted me knowing my career and what I want to do with STEM and the support community that I'm going to receive as I want to pursue biomedical engineering to then go to med school and become a pathologist, which is just nice to know that I have the support community, and really is inspiring and gives me so much hope for my future and the future for future generations. So it's really exciting to see this all at this amazing conference.
That's amazing.
So I'm going to talk about SWENext, but first I'm going to talk about SWENext because, like I said, I was not a member until today, but I promise you SWENext will be in my future. This conference is so empowering, as I've mentioned so many times, but going from a place where, there's like no women in STEM to going to a place here where it's all women in STEM, it is truly an experience like no other, and I really would like to get so many young girls in my own area involved because I think having this community could be such a powerful experience for them. So as the future for SWENext, hopefully I can bring that back to my hometown because I think that would be so amazing.
We would love that.
As for SWENext and the future, so one thing that I'm always passionate about, I do want to pursue similar to Zoe, a career, biomedical engineering, and then a career in medicine, hopefully working on aerospace medicine with organizations like NASA and such. Before that, in my future, the main thing that I've always said that regardless of if my paths change, that I want to focus on is education. Educational accessibility and opportunities accessible to those all across the United States, regardless of who they are or where they come from. SWENext is empowering me to do that. This is an incredible organization that empowers advocacy of so many people across the United States of America, that empowers us to share our stories and to share our experiences and to impact those around us positively using those stories and using those experiences. It's really allowed me to get involved with the education and the STEM opportunities of so many young people. So if there's one thing that I'm leaving off today that I hope to see in my future, it's that I remain committed to that goal of, using this advocacy opportunity and using any advocacy opportunities in the future to continue advocating for more accessible opportunities for young people, regardless of where they come from. Because you know what? STEM is for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, it's for everybody.
Absolutely.
I also did want to add about FIRST too. Before I started taking engineering, I didn't even know what degree I wanted. Like, I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't know how I'd get there. I just knew I'd figure out some way to get there. But my teacher always jokingly says, once you join FIRST, you're stuck for life. You're never getting out of it. And I will definitely say that I agree. I volunteered at my first event, and I fell in love with it. Then came the season, and then I kept volunteering, and it's really my passion. I know for a fact the year after I graduate, I'm going to come back as a judge for tournaments, as someone who's going to help field reset, just because it's such a passion of mine, FIRST Robotics, and it's really inspired me to want to pursue engineering further. And having that combination with SWE is just the best of both worlds for me, as I get the aspect of women in STEM with also being able to further my knowledge with FIRST Robotics. And it's definitely a bright future with both, as I know what I want to do to give back to the STEM community when I am in my career and everything's moving forward.
Also, shout out Zoe. My school, we were already kind of on the cusp of getting a robotics team, but after talking to Zoe, we will definitely be getting a robotics team. It may not be FIRST, but it will be Vex, because I've never met somebody so passionate about something. And, you can probably tell this, but I just love who Zoe is as a human being. And if somebody can be that passionate about something, then I really want to make sure that that opportunity is accessible to students in our school so they can be, just as passionate as Zoe is.
That's so kind of you. I'm so glad I met you too. It was destined that we were going to meet because we both are so similar, and it really is incredible. And also, I do have to say, with First, my mom has dropped me off at school for more hours than she ever thought she would too, because I feel really stuck to the makerspace because I just love what I do. So it's addicting. I highly suggest it, but I'm so glad I can meet another individual like you, because this is really special, the connections that you make at conferences such as this, as you learn about another side of you that you never realized that you can connect with more through STEM, through SWE, through everything overall with science. It really is an amazing and the best field.
Yeah. Thank you for SWE for setting this up. Like,
Yes.
it's just amazing. If you are not going to a SWE conference, go to SWE. This is the takeaway of this is to go to a SWE conference.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes,
It is incredible.
get involved with SWE in your local area, right?
Yes.
I can't think of better representatives and advocates for SWE and STEM in general than the two of you. This has been absolutely incredible, amazing conversation. It is, to me, the perfect way. This is our last podcast in the Diverse Podcast Studio, and I can't think of a better way to close out this year at WE25. So I thank both of you so much. Charlee and Zoe, thank you for coming and sharing your stories. Without a doubt, I'm sure it's going to inspire somebody to take that next step or get involved. They will find the role model in either of you, and I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for your time today, too. I can say we both definitely enjoyed this experience, and we're so grateful for SWE and everything that they do for this community. So thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again, and I'm Larry Guthrie, live at WE25, and from all of us at SWE, thanks for listening.